something with your marketing, it is time for what I would call lock and load. Now, nothing to do with firearms. What we're seeing happening now and what's coming down the pike more and more are companies, particularly the big advertising companies, cracking down on what marketers can and can't do with their data, especially when it contains data that is personally identifying information that we may or may not have consent for. So, for example, if you were to download your entire LinkedIn contacts list, you don't have a right to email that list. Well, as of July 1 on Facebook, you will also not have a right to show ads to that list because the people who are on that list who have connected with you on LinkedIn have not explicitly opted into receiving advertising from you. So all lists going to Facebook will require that certification and in terms of being able to prove that you have consent to advertise to lists. So what this means, or what you should do with this, a couple things. Number one, for any lists that you do have consent for, upload them now anyway, because there's no telling how onerous the procedures will or won't be. So as long as you have consent for them now, go ahead and upload them and get them into place. You will want, if you have not already done so, and we've been talking about this since before the GDPR transition, if you have not already begun deploying retargeting and remarketing pixels on your web properties with the correct permissions and obtaining of consent for those, now would be the time to do that, because those audiences are going to get more valuable as time goes on. With fewer third-party audiences, with fewer audiences of people that have just been collected, you will need to own more of the rights and permissions to your audience. We used to say in email marketing, own your audience, which was a misnomer because you don't really own an audience. You don't own anything. But what you do own is data, and what you do own is consent for that data. So as marketers, we have to be obtaining consent rigorously, keeping great track of it, great records of it. And then as time goes on, as we build those audiences get more valuable to us than to other parties. Now, this is where we get into influencers. Influencers are third parties to us. So there's us, which is the first party. There's our customers, which is the second party. And there's influencers, which are the third party. Influencers, press, major sources, publications, whatever you want to call them. In traditional marketing, we would normally just go to the third parties as using advertising tools to get to the audience that we don't have access to get to. Now, with all of these crackdowns on what ad tools are and are not allowed to do, this bucket of influencers is about to get a lot more valuable. The influencer that is first party to their audience has, or presumably will have, the permissions to advertise to them, to email them, to do things like that, that we as marketers will now need to leverage because the advertising tools may not work as well as they have in the past, and reaching out to those audiences will not be as easy as it has been in the past. So we need to lock in our influencers, sign longer contracts, get preferential pricing now, because what's going to happen as third-party data continues to go away, as we lose access to it, access to influencers' audiences is going to get a lot more expensive, like adding a zero expensive. So if you are a brand, if you are a company, lock in the influencers you have, build influencers internally. So build subject matter experts and influential personalities within your organization. Grow them yourself so that you're less reliant on those third parties. If you can turn your CEO or CMO or CFO or whoever into an influencer, they obviously have a far more vested interest in the company than some person that you found on Instagram. If you are an influencer, go through and audit your audience. Make sure you have consent for everything. Hey, can I get your permission to email you? Can I get your permission to direct message you? Can I get your permission to show ads to you? And if you have got that audience of clear, auditable, provable consent on all these different channels, your value is going to go through the roof, because you will be able to meet regulatory requirements, you will be able to demonstrate proof of consent for all these different channels, and you will have access to the audiences that the brands may or may not, especially if the brands don't have a ton of money to throw around, like run a $100 million ad campaign. If if a company doesn't have that kind of money to fling around, then you right now are a bargain. You are a super bargain, and then after everybody in the market adds zeros to account for the change in market dynamics, you will still probably be a bargain, because it would be better to pay an influencer with the right audience with provable consent $250,000 than to spend $2.5 million running ads to an audience that may not even want to hear from you. So in this week's Do Something With Your Marketing, load those lists now that you have consent for, start building your own influencers, and then for the influencers you have, get them signing things as fast as you can for as long as possible to lock in pricing now, because in the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to get super expensive to work with influencers. If you're an influencer, obtain consent to your audience now. Grow that audience, grow that list, grow your database that you have consent for, and then get ready to turn up the pricing dial, because you in the next 12 to 18 months, things are going to get real good for you real fast. So that's this week's Do Something With Your Marketing. Depending on who you are, different to-dos, but a lot is coming and a lot will be changing in ad systems over the next 1 to 2 years. Now that we're through GDPR, every time there's a new privacy scandal of some kind, it becomes more and more likely that the world and all the various governments will start regulating digital marketing. So we're going to, in an age of regulation, the people who have first mover advantage, who are grandfathered into a lot of these things, will have substantial advantage over new entrants to the market. There'll be a lot more value on those data assets that you have permission for. So that's your Do Something with Your Marketing this week. Enjoy. As always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the newsletter, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. If you want help with your company's data and analytics, visit BrainTrustInsights.com today and let us know how we can help you.